Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Frank Clayton. And today we're talking about summer slowdowns in dentistry and why it's happening, what it means for your practice, and most importantly, what you can do about it. Um, to help us unpack it all, my friend here, Lori Bernardo, Director of Practice Growth at Amplify 360. Lori works with practices across the country and spends every day analyzing patient trends, marketing performance, and growth strategies. Lori, as always, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Frank. Really glad to be here. And honestly, this could not be more timely, right? We're hearing a lot about it right now. At Amplify 360, we work with dental practices really across the country on marketing and growth strategy. What gives us a unique vantage point is seeing performance data across a lot of practices at once, not really hearing from just one office, but across different markets, different practice sizes, and patient demographics. It's one of the biggest ways we're able to help dentists actually. All that data helps us build better marketing strategies and ultimately more profitable practices. But right now, it's not the easiest market to be in. Practices that felt strong heading into the summer are starting to say they're feeling it, right? Especially the ones who are just coming to us for the first time. So, yeah, I know the economy is on a lot of dentist minds right now, and I'm happy to be here and share just, really what's working in this slowdowns in times like these.
Yeah, Lori, I've heard it on message boards. I'm seeing it. I always wonder, is it regional? Is it,
Mhm.
hyper specific? Is it cosmetic offices? I'm hearing it all over. It's good that you can verify that you guys have the data to show, yeah, you're seeing more of just a seasonal slowdown in addition to the economic slowdown. That's always a hot topic in dentistry. So let's start with a headline. Walk us through the big picture that two-thirds of American consumers are cutting back due to rising prices. We know that consumables are getting high. Dentistry is ranked right up there with being a big expense, and a lot of people are just cutting it out. And so, as a dentist, you sit there and you start to panic. I've done it. I did it for years on the ebb and flow of the economy. So, when you talk to dentists, Lori, what are they saying, and are they feeling this panic?
Yeah, they are. They're hearing it, and whether it's real in their particular demographic or it's just the fear. Like, let's be honest, right? I'm driving down the road yesterday. I saw the gas prices coming down, and it gives me hope because I know that affects so many other things. But still, it takes a while for that stuff to happen. And dentists are feeling it, right? They're talking about it. Their patients are talking about it. And we know that when consumers are uncertain whether or not they really have the cash flow to do things, but when they're uncertain, they become more selective on where to spend their money. And when those consumers are patients, that means the dental treatment often falls into that category of I'll do it later, right?
Yep.
Right
Yep.
now, the dentists who are coming to us are talking about patients delaying treatment. Case acceptance is taking longer. And even if it gets scheduled at all, right? It's not, it's taking a long time to get it scheduled, it's getting a long time to complete it. And upticks in cancellations, no shows, right? I've seen that many, many times over the years in the summer times. But bottom line, all of it affects that bottom line in production. But it also it also really hurts morale, and that's something that as a practice owner, you have to be responsible for that too, right?
Yeah, it's tough when, and I can see a lot of dentists nodding their heads that, the morale starts to suffer, and deep down, you start to think that,
Hmm.
and yet you have to be positive, and you have to, be an effective leader,
Hmm.
not ignore this, but you have to put it back and step back. We're gonna talk about this and take a bigger view and things to do, while this is happening, because it'll come back, because a lot of it's the summer dynamics. We know most of the docs listening, and it wasn't my practice, school's out, people are traveling, you're fighting with travel budgets, and there's always different place this time of year. Um, how much are you seeing, Lori, and what do you think is a seasonal versus economic, or is it a combination of both?
Yeah, it really is both, and that's the truth. I mean, you can't deny it. That is both of those things are happening at the same time. But let's be honest, if you're facing, getting veneers versus, taking your family to Disney, what are you going to choose, right? You're going to take your family to Disney, right? So we know that these summer patterns are seasonal, but we are also seeing broader consumer behavior shifts. And as people adapt to this inflation that's going on and rising costs everywhere, it's happening, right? And of course, these problems, they're magnified, right? All of these things when the economy is challenging.
Yeah, there's some. I don't know many practices that are immune. A lot say it's not affecting them. It's affecting them. It may not be a biggest impact,
Right.
but I see, on Facebook groups, on Dental Town, different dental message boards. That's what I'm seeing, reading, hearing. Um, they're feeling the combination of it always, and you expect
Mhm.
it. Now the economic pressures hit, and it's kind of like a little one-two punch, and you're sitting there wondering, will my schedule ever fill up again? Things start ruminating in your head, and that can be dangerous.
Yeah.
It is. I want other dentists to know you're not alone in this. And this has happened. I've been practicing for 27 years. You go through these cycles, um, and I guess you don't get used to it, but you get conditioned. And what I did is go to like bread and butter dentistry. I always
Mhm.
wonder in times like this, do you buy, a less, a worse kind of bread, maybe white bread and a lower grade butter? Because when it's really good, you buy the
Right.
French bread and the Irish
Right.
butter. So every time I hear that, I'm thinking, well, what kind of bread and butter economy are we in? So, uh, talk about where we go from here. Um, and if a dentist is joining us today and feeling some of that, and I know a lot of you are, um, how do you start the conversation, Lori? Because it's in their mind. And
Mhm.
what are you saying to docs that you're working with right now?
Yeah, and I have to start with saying, the solo practitioner, most practices, right, are in that scenario, and you're living alone, all alone on an island, right? So you don't really have who's gut checking you, right, on what's reality versus perception. So
Yep.
thank you for coming today because it's really important to know that you're not the only one going and they're going through this, and there's also ways you can address it, right? So it really comes down to two big things. It's consistency in your methods, and it's visibility. So consistency, the practice must have foundational stability. That's going to come from your core dentistry services, right?
Yep.
Now, the other piece of it, and that's what you're doing in house, right? And that second part is that visibility. So, giving presence in the marketplace. You have to have presence in the marketplace. Now is not the time to pull back on your marketing, even though that might be your instinct. Because if you stay consistent and commit to your bread and butter dentistry now to weather this storm, when the cycle turns around, and it will, if you do not also commit to staying visible in your market, someone else is going to. And think about that. You have your visibility here, and then you kind of not pay attention to it, and it goes down, and somebody else is coming up, in that race way ahead of you, right? So
Yeah.
you want to make sure that when that you're not being overrun by your competitors, right? And if you cut back, by the time you decide to get back in, you're going to have to spend more to get back in that race. So I'm sure when you're running your practice, Frank, you went through a few slowdowns, right?
I
Yeah,
did.
yeah,
As you're telling me this, it's akin to investing. And when the market goes down, you kind of get that panicked feeling that you want out. That's not the time to
yeah,
sell.
yeah.
It's probably time to dollar cost average or buy more. Marketing and dentistry was no different, and it went against what I felt, but
Mhm.
I'm glad I did it. Very good advice from John on this, in that you have that feeling of the money is disappearing. Um, on paper, it is. If you've built a strong practice, like you've said, you can weather this. And there's some things Lori and I are about to talk about that you can do because you don't want to swim upstream on this. You're not gonna beat the economy, but ride the waves with it.
Mhm,
Um, I look for new avenues of production
mhm,
where I would expand the core dentistry, and I called it hitting singles and doubles. We
mhm,
did a lot of cosmetic work, and the practice was built on that. But also in times like this, you have to pull back from that and say, okay, I may start doing extractions again. I may start, doing things that weren't in your office before that you were referring out. That that's a source of income that wasn't tapped before because you were referring it out.
mhm,
So you have to look at these things and the marketing shifts on this.
mhm,
Um, I leaned into that. It wasn't ideal. No, my ideal was, 2 cases a day and everybody show up. You're seeing cancellations and maybe one or no strong cases a day.
mhm,
That's just what it is. But be there and be flexible. Um, I always did this, Lori, where I would contract the schedule, knowing that employees
mhm,
that was the biggest expense that I had. I would always compact the schedule. If, my front desk would say, they're starting to cancel, I said, well, let's see what we can do about compacting. Maybe get off at 2 today. Employees liked it because during the busy times, you're really humming. You don't have time to look at things and you can get burnt out. Roll with times like this. Leave at 2 o'clock.
mhm,
Um, it is time to sharpen the pencil. Um, because when it's humming along, it's hard to take a look back. You're exhausted, end of the day, the bucket is being filled. It's great. This slowdown gives you that window. So look at that as an opportunity to look at expenses, your P&L,
mhm,
evaluate employees, look at systems, make sure
mhm,
systems are in. These are things that go by the wayside because it's like a sports team. When you're winning, that gets rid of a lot of problems. And when you're producing a lot of problems just kind of get thrown under the rug.
right,
um, don't panic, don't panic fire because you think you've got to cut staff. You need to keep the marketing in place, keep the staff in place, contract a little bit, but when it comes back, and it will come back, you need to have people in place because if you cut staff and cut capacity, then you're riding against another wave. Roll with the waves. Don't panic, make the adjustments. This is also a time where I worked on leadership. I learned about leading people, things that are in the practice but not directly related to maybe
right,
operative skill. Polish up on that because when it gets busy, you're going to need it. You'll need it for the rest of your career.
mhm.
um, eh, so Lori, talk about some of the opportunities that I mentioned. Tell
Yeah,
me a few of those fundamentals to focus on, like this summer.
yeah, I love hearing how you manage that in your practice, Frank, because it really is, you know, sometimes you're just busy being busy, right? So when business is good, your systems, you know, you're just trusting the systems work. It may the systems are not that great. It's just that you're so busy, you're not noticing the systems are not great, right? So this is really a good time to start tapping on opportunities that you already have that you might not really be aware of, right? So we know in dentistry, we are largely recession proof, and that's thank God, right? In all my years of dentistry, I've never really seen really hard times, right?
Right.
Knowing that, right? And really leaning into that emotion that you might be pressured for a short time, right? But it will come back. But you do have to do things, right? You can't just wait for it. You have to take action. So this is a really good time to re-energize and reset. Like you said, you know what? Giving your staff a little, early afternoon off. Who doesn't like that, right? And not pressuring people to fill the schedule. We know what's happening. You're in that cycle. So if you take that time and prepare, you'll really be ready to really hit it hard when things turn around again. The healthiest practices don't rely on those large elective cases alone, right? If you're ready to retool, it's great. So what we like when clients come to us, We like to put, and we're not just marketing, we do practice growth. And practice growth happens in many different places. So when it's slow and you have this time, what we suggest you do is really build that consistency through these strong fundamentals. So if I were going to make a hit list, here's the hit list. Here are the areas where I would suggest you focus on during this summer. So number one is your hygiene retention, right? Hygiene retention is the single biggest lever we have. In fact, when I analyze retention and practices, I often find roughly $300,000 of untapped revenue that's hidden in hygiene retention losses. So you want to focus on that. Second is periodontal treatment. Listen, we all know the data, right? We're still
Mhm.
talking about 70% of the population, right? That number may be completely off. I'm not 100% sure anymore since I left hygiene, but there's still a large percentage of patients who are periodontally involved and getting prophies. So let's lean into that periodontal treatment. Bone up on our skills on how to convert those patients into the proper periodontal care. Three, use your existing diagnosed treatment. Listen, there's a lot of patients out there who do want to move ahead on treatment, and maybe they had to cancel their last appointment and they kind of forgot about it. It happens, right?
Mhm.
Let's look
Yep.
into those. Let's look into your database and find out where is that bread and butter dentistry. It's so much easier to get a patient back into your schedule when they know that that small two surface filling could potentially turn into a more complex root canal. They don't want that. So let's get them back in. Let's do that existing diagnosed treatment. And then patient reactivation, always important, and your recall system. So when I say recall, it's not pick up the phone and call your unscheduled list. We all know how hard that is to do. And today, nobody answers his phone. I'm really talking about working on internal systems so that your team has a standardized process for how recall actually works.
Yeah, this this is not the fun stuff to work on in a practice.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Mhm.
cosmetic cases, if that's your thing, surgery, that's the fun stuff. This is the stuff though that supports the practice. Like Lori was saying, this needs to be done because when this we come out of this cycle, you've got to be positioned for it. If these buckets are leaking, which Lori just talked about, I can guarantee you they really get amplified, no pun, when you start really working. And if the systems aren't in place, um, your Lori mentioned it's 300,000 alone. Mine was more than that in hygiene
Was
leaks
it?
that
Oh boy.
John and I discovered because people were just leaking out. They missed an appointment or two, and then it just inertia, and forgot or life got in the way. There's a
Hmm.
lot of that out there. Bring that back in, clean it up a little bit, so when it happens, you're really efficient and you're really humming when the bucket gets full. Um, the instinct, Lori, we talked about it, is visibility. And the first thing you look for in your line item, if you're running a practice, you've got to have the employees, you've got to have heating and air, you've got to have electricity. When you see marketing on there, you go, do I really need it? Yeah, you really need it. Do you need $10,000 a month? Sometimes you do.
Hmm.
Could you cut back now? Sure. And change your message a little bit? Sure.
Hmm.
So I always wondered what separated the practices that did that. And I became the practice that did that because I thought, well, he's really rolling in, when we're coming out of it or towards the tail end of it.
Hmm.
And before I made some changes, I wasn't that busy. I'm like, well, what is he doing? Well, Lord, tell me. I mean, you're spending money on market, you're keeping the visibility there. You
Hmm.
don't wanna go into the hole and hide
Right.
and the Chicken
Right.
Little effect.
Right.
So,
That's
tell
right.
me about that.
Yeah. So when we talk about visibility, we're really talking about giving your practice a presence in the marketplace, but we have to be smart about it. So, for example, like you were saying, Frank, probably not the best time to be spending marketing dollars on Invisalign, veneers, and more costly cases while people are actively looking to cut costs. Marketing your most expensive services is probably not going to work. But it doesn't mean we turn marketing off. Remember, the practice has to stay visible. So we move away from big case aspiration and we change the message. Now it's about access, availability, and trust. You want to say, we're here, we have time for you, here's how to get in. So when people are ready, you're ready to get them in, right? At Amplify 360, this is really the strategic work that we do with practices every day. When the market shifts, we help the practices shift with it. Adjusting messaging, identifying which patient segments to prioritize, and making sure the right systems are in place so that when the demand comes back, the practice is positioned to capture it, not catch up. Practices that invest in marketing during downturns come out ahead after cycles turn back again. So let's look at some really historical things that happened that we have actual data on, and we feel confident in being able to predict, right, based on trends in the market, what can happen. Three major change, difficult times in the last, 25 years in our markets, right? So in 2001, the big dot-com crash, right? That was big,
Yep.
right? That post 9/11
Remember
economic
that.
slowdown, right? You know, you look at big companies that what they did. So Apple and Netflix. Okay, we'll get to dentistry. I know it sounds like, Apple and Netflix isn't my little mom and pop dental shop, but what Apple did was they doubled down on their R&D. They released their iPod in 2001. Who would have thought that people would have went out and bought an expensive technology at that time, yet they did. Now they're one of the most valuable companies in history. Netflix, right? At that time, Blockbuster was still around, right?
Yep.
Netflix invested in customer acquisition. Blockbuster pulled back. They hesitated. They were scared. Today, Netflix is a $300 billion major broadcast company. Where's Blockbuster today? They're gone, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
In
They
the,
missed that one.
they missed it, right? Like
Yep.
big time. Now, dental industry, we saw this because we were working with these practices during that time. The practices that kept marketing post 9/11 saw higher patient retention by 20% compared to those that paused their efforts. In 2008, happened again, right? The Great Recession. Businesses that maintained or increased marketing saw a 256% higher sales and growth after the recession. That's from the Harvard Business Review. Companies that cut back took an average of 3 years longer to recover that lost revenue during that time. Dental practices, again, we have that data, right? We have practices all over the country that we were
Yep.
watching. The ones that expanded things like patient financing options and invested in digital marketing saw treatment acceptance increase by 30%. It's pretty significant.
That is
And then again, during that COVID-19 crash, very fresh for the younger
fresh.
dentists in our
Yeah.
mind, right? And some of them might not remember 2001. They were children at that time, right?
If they were
But
born.
if
Yeah.
they were born, right? But we know that what happens, right? There was one way or the other. We have practices that completely went away for that period of time, and others that focused on marketing, patient communication, things like online scheduling. So, an actually 42% increase, right, in practices being used. And those practices saw a huge increase in new patient inquiries during lockdown, right? And that's where you build trust, right? Those new patients who had nowhere else to go, their own dentists were not there anymore, but you were there, right?
Yeah.
That's the
Roy, I had heard there were some dentists that just closed their doors, not for good, but just for weeks. And you're not doing anything. It's COVID. You could communicate with patients.
and they did the opposite, right?
Yeah. I can't, I
So
don't understand.
they did the opposite. So the practices we saw that their message became emergencies. We're here. We were able to be here for certain emergencies, right? So we're here. We're open. Come in. We'll get you in today, right? We'll make it a priority. So we saw tremendous benefits. Those practices stuck with it, right? And those who cut marketing saw patient recall drop by 60%, and many of them never regained that lost business. Frank, I still talk to practice today. This is 6 years later, and they talk about how they never recovered.
Yeah. Yeah. That is, it's too common to hear that. And it's, again, we keep going to it counterintuitive, but it is. Trust Lori, trust me. I've been in it. I've seen this. Stay the course on it.
Mhm,
Um, when it's blowing in your way and you're swimming upstream or paddling upstream with your crew right behind you,
mhm,
it's tough. Be an effective leader, put things in place because you're going to get out of it, and we'll all get out of this together. I promise you. As
mhm,
a business owner, especially if you've got a lot of debt, or you just started practice, or hell, even if you just bought one,
mhm.
you're sitting on a mountain of debt. Your employees, they're counting on you. You've got a lot of burden to shoulder on this, and when this happens, the first instinct is to shelter a little bit.
Mhm,
Strong leadership, like Lori was talking about, recognizes that this is an opportunity. It's not going to happen tomorrow, but build a foundation for it. So when it does happen, you will come out stronger. I've weathered many of these, and this was predictable.
mhm.
Dental treatment doesn't just, the need for it doesn't just go away, it's
Right.
always there. Right now, it's being compressed.
Mhm,
So, what I saw and what a lot of docs have been through this, you may not see anything for months or just a filling or two, or your production is below average. The people that are delaying care, that care only gets more complex and more expensive the
that's right,
longer they wait.
that's
If
it.
you practice dentistry, you know this.
Mhm,
The proactive patients that get the one surface molar done,
mhm.
um, right now that keeps the lights on, but there are many that are delaying treatment, and it's not really smart. It's not, it's kind of like not changing your oil or brakes for years because it's, quote, expensive. What do you value, the car or the $60 oil change?
Mhm.
um, Lori made a very good point. You grab some really good patients in times like this because they
Yeah.
do value this.
Mhm.
So expect the seasonal fluctuations. If you've done
Right.
this for a while, you know that that's built in. Then expect economic headwinds time
Mhm.
to time. Different regions will, it'll be stronger than others. Nationwide, I think that's happening now.
Mhm.
Um, the difference is, if you are prepared, you will find yourself on the other side coming out. It will happen again as long
Mhm.
as you practice long enough. This will happen, and stay focused on the, like Lori said, patient relationships, communication, the fundamentals. That's when I wrote notes to patients, handwritten notes. But
Yeah.
I would just call. I knew I'd get a voicemail, but all they wanted to hear was the doctor's voice. I mean, wonderful marketing is like, "Hey, John, hadn't seen you in a while. You're sitting there looking at a blank schedule." He calls back and goes, "Oh yeah, I just have been busy." So small things like that, when you have the time, are great. All these are great insights, Lori. I just sit there nodding my head with the dentist or listening, going, "Yep, yep, I see this," and it's painful right now. We'll be having this conversation hopefully within a year, going, "How
Mhm.
about those who
Yeah,
weathered the storm?"
that's right. Yeah.
Uh, champagne's popping in the
Mhm.
operatory,
Mhm.
cigars are lit, people are walking all around because they did. Um, but give me some of your closing thoughts on this. I know we've circled back to the same
Uh-huh.
message, but that message is true, and that's what anchors the marketing, the leadership. Any closing thoughts on it?
Yeah. So, Frank, so many things, right? We know that in those patients, when they come to you during these times, when you really stick in there with them, you know, trust is probably the
Mhm.
biggest determining factor in patients accepting and moving ahead on treatment that's going to benefit their well-being and their health. There are good solutions out there for dentists who need support right now. And that's exactly the kind of partnership Amplify 360 was built for. We're a growth partner. And that means we're really looking at the full picture with you, your market, your patient mix, your systems, your messaging, not just during the booms, but in moments like this one when the right move isn't always obvious. So if you're looking at the news and you're feeling that squeeze, stay in touch with us. Even if you don't know where to start, that's okay. Scan the QR code you see on the screen right now. Text us at 470-704-3982, or click the links that you see in the chat. What we'll do is we'll send you a calendar link when you do that. There's no pressure to do anything, I promise you. We're just going to have a talk, right? We'll just talk with one of our team members, and then we could share some of the things other dentists are having success with right now and see what a real path forward might look like for your practice. Again, it's no obligation, it's just a chat. And as always, I would really encourage you, if you want to learn more about who we are and what we do and see some of our awesome client testimonials. Frank was one of our longtime clients. He's telling you right now how it worked, but many, many other clients are on there. Check us out, amplify360.com. We are here to help.
Great information, Lori. I appreciate it. So that's all for tonight. We hope this discussion gives you practical strategies you can put into action. You think about what we said. We know it's on your mind. We'll help you out during this. Until next time, I'm Frank Clayton. Thanks, Lori.